grade 12 learners, welcome to today's geography lesson. My name is Nomthandazo Malembe. This lesson is brought to you by the Northern Cape Department of Education in collaboration with Pagama Research and Development. So today, learners, we are focusing on our paper 1 revision. But before we start with our revision or our lesson, I just want us to go through our lesson objective for today. So by the end of this lesson, learners, you should be able to identify the structure for paper 1 and also focusing on the following topics. Number 1, we'll be looking at your climate and weather questions. Then secondly, we'll be looking at your geomorphology questions. And lastly, we will be looking at your mapwork questions. For your paper 1, as we are saying that by the end of this lesson, you should be able to identify the structure for your paper 1. Number 1, the mark allocation for your paper is 150, and the time allocation or the duration of the paper is 3 hours. Then in your question paper, you have 2 sections, your section A and your section B. Under your section A, it's where you should expect 2 questions, your question 1 and your question 2. And under your section B, it's where you expect 1 question, which is question 3, and that question 3 is your mapwork questions. So to better break down the questions, as you said in your question 1, it's where you should expect any question from your climate and weather. In there, the questions, they come in figures, your figure 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, and 1.5. So your figure 1.1 and 1.2, it's where you should expect your short objective questions. When you're talking about your short objective questions, these are your one-word questions. They may come as a multiple choice where you are given 4 options to choose from, or they may come as column A and column B. Your column A and column B, remember in column A, you are now given a definition, and then in column B, you need to choose the content. And it is now easier because you are only given 2 options to choose from. Or you may also be given in a bracket whereby you need to choose one a concept or one word that will make the statement to be correct. And also, you are advised that start by writing down the numbering. Your 1.1.1 up to 1.1.8. If the first figure, it has 8 questions. If the first figures, it has 8 questions, it means your figure 1.2 will have 7 questions, and then after you have 15 altogether. You will then move to your figure 1.3. Your figure 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, it's where you should expect your short, medium, and long questions. When you're talking about short questions, divide, then 1 times 2. That's where are your short questions. Remember, again, you are defining, so you need to give a full explanation. Then you'll have questions with a 2 times 2 mark allocation where you're supposed to give 2 responses, and 3 times 2 where you're supposed to give your 3 responses. Then between your figure 1.3 and your 1.5, there is 1 paragraph question that you will get. Remember, paragraph question, you're supposed to give 4 responses in order for you to have that 8 marks or to get all the 8 marks. That is your question 1. So 15 marks from your short objective questions. Then from your figure 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, it's 15, 15, 15 each, and that gives you a total of 16. Then you move to your question 2, still on section A. Your question 2, you should expect any question from geomorphology. So your geomorphology, again, the strategy is still the same. You start with the short objective questions, and then before you move to your long questions. Your short objective questions, again, if 2.1 has 7 questions, it means 2.2 will have 8 questions. The format is still the same. They may come as a multiple choice or column A or column B, or to choose from the brackets. Then after, you move to your long questions, which is figure 2.3 up to figure 2.5. Between those three figures, again, you will have one paragraph question. Your paragraph question, make sure that you have 4 responses for you to gain all the 8 marks. Then you move to your section B. As you are moving to your section B, which is your question 3. Your question 3 is where you should expect questions from your map work. Your map work, you are given 3.1, figure 3.2, and figure 3.3. Under figure 3.1, you should expect any questions from map skills as well as map calculation, and they are allocated 10 marks. Then you move to your figure 3.2. Your figure 3.2 is map interpretation. You will be interpreting what we have learned in climate and weather as well as your geomorphology, and they are allocated with 12 marks. Then you go to the last figure, which is figure 3.3. Your figure 3.3, it has your GIS questions, and they are allocated with 8 marks. Then altogether, it's giving you 30 marks. Then, so getting through to our examination tips. So these are the things that you're supposed to do on the day of exam when you are already seated down and when you already received that question paper. So you need to start by reading the instructions carefully. You have the information and the instructions on page 2. You start by reading that because they are also reminding you on what questions or what topic you will be expecting in question 1, what topic you will be expecting in question 2 as well as question 3, and then they also indicate the map that will be allocated for that day, and also they do remind you about the unit when it comes to the calculation, and furthermore they give you another do's and don'ts on the day of exam. Then you will be given a 10-minute reading time. In that 10-minute reading time, remember, you are not allowed to write anything but to read through the question paper. So use that time to read that information and instructions, and also to go through the question per question from question 1, question 2, question 3. So it will give you a time so that you see what are the questions that have been asked, so that you start memorizing on what you have learned in class. So use that 10-minute reading time to the fullest, starting from your instructions, and then after, read through the question paper. Don't just page, but read through the question paper so that by the time the invigilator is saying you may start writing, then you know exactly what you're supposed to write. Then when you are now given that opportunity to write, make sure before you answer, please read the questions twice. As you are reading the questions twice, you will have more understanding of the question, because sometimes you can read the question without any understanding, then read it again. So make it a norm that before you answer, you read your questions twice so that you don't do any mistake. Then you also need to underline the keywords. When we are talking about the keywords and the action words, which is the verbs, identify the front labeled A and B. So your keyword there is identify. You know that you're not supposed to give a 4 or 5 line answer. You just need to identify or state a front labeled A and B, then you know that your keyword there, you are identifying or you are stating or you are explaining or you are accounting, so that you know how to structure your answer. Sometimes you will waste time writing 6, 7 lines, whereas you were supposed to just identify one thing. And then also you may lose marks whereby you only wrote 1 or 2 words, whereas you were supposed to give a full explanation of your answer. Then also, please make sure that you take note or you know the mark allocation. The question might just ask, and then without telling you how many responses you're supposed to give. But by looking at the mark allocation, it's where you will realize that if they're saying account for the formation of cumulonimbus cloud, and then they give you 3 times 2, that's where you realize that these 3, I'm supposed to give 3 responses, and each response will give me 2 marks, and then at the end, I will have that 6 marks. Other than just writing 1 response, and then you're only getting 2 marks, and you are losing 4 marks. Then also, study the resources, which is your diagram as well as your infographics, because some of the answers might be there. And also, it can give you even the clues on how you're supposed to structure your answers, because the diagram is there to assist you when it comes to answering. Then, as I've said, our first question, which is question 1, it's based on climate and weather. So, if it's based on climate and weather, the topic is within your temperature inversion. So, we said start by reading the instructions. So not only the instructions on page 2, but each and every figure, it has its instruction. So like this one, it's saying refer to the diagrams along based on the inland temperature inversion. So before you can even look at the question, you're now aware that the questions will be based on the temperature inversion. Then you start memorizing what is the temperature inversion. Then you go through the diagram, then you realize there's diagram A and there's diagram B. And what you see, you're looking at the position of the high pressure in diagram A, you're looking at the position of the high pressure in diagram B. And whatever information that is on the diagram, then you make notes. Then after that, you then go through the questions. The first question, your 2.4.1, what is temperature inversion? 1 times 2, meaning you need to give a full answer so that you get 2 marks. Then secondly, which season is represented by the position of the inversion layer in sketch A? So you are looking at the position of the inversion layer in sketch A. And you are also given your 1 times 1. Then your 2.4.3, draw a simple cross section which will show the position of the temperature inversion in sketch B. 2 times 1, which means you need to do 2 things that will give you 1 mark each. The next question, your 2.4.4, explain why the position of the inversion layer varies between winter and summer. 2 times 2. Explain. Remember we said when the question is asking about 2 features or 2 things in the same question, you need to be specific. This is the answer for winter and this is the answer for summer. Then your 2.4.5, in a paragraph of approximately 8 lines, evaluate the influence of the position of the inversion layer in sketch A on the climate and how it impacts negatively on the economic activities in the interior of South Africa. Your 4 times 2, which means 4 responses that will give you 8 marks. So now that you have seen all the questions, then you are now ready to start with the answers. So you're going to have the first 3 questions. With those first 3 questions, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. And then after 5 minutes, we will then proceed to the next 2 questions. So your 5 minutes start now. Right? Girls and boys, I hope we are all done. So in our next question, your question 2.4.4 and your 2.4.5, because again, there is a paragraph question. I'm going to give you another 5 minutes, and then after 5 minutes, we will then be ready to do our correction. Girls and boys, again, we are looking at our solutions. In our solutions, the first question there, your 2.4.1, you are supposed to answer what is temperature inversion. So as we are doing our corrections, please make sure that you are marking your own work so that you can see which question you got it correct and which question you got it incorrect, so that after the lesson, you will further do more questions based on the one that were incorrect. So our first question, your 2.4.1, what is temperature inversion? Remember, we're talking about an increase in temperature with an increase in height or altitude. Height or altitude. An increase in temperature with an increase in height or altitude. You don't have to say both of them, just it's either height or in altitude. So in. Then secondly, your 2.4.2, which season is represented by the position of the inversion layer in sketch A. So what you see there, the temperature inversion is below escarpment. So they've already given you this information. Then by now you're supposed to know that if the temperature inversion is below the escarpment, it is representing winter. Then secondly, we're looking at the position of the 3 high pressure cells. And with the position, you know that this is winter. You see there is a cold front that is approaching. There is a Kalahari high pressure that is dominant over the interior. Remember, those are the winter conditions. Then your 2.4.3, you are supposed to draw a simple cross-section which will show the position of the temperature inversion in sketch B. So your temperature inversion in sketch B is above the escarpment. Why above the escarpment? Because we're looking at the position of the cold front, which is usually misses Cape Town. You see that it is further south. And also we're looking at the position again of these 2 high pressure cell. And then also we are given a tropical cyclone there. You remember that tropical cyclone occurs in summer. So therefore, even if you were asked, identify the season marked by A as well as diagram B, then because you are already given a clue that this temperature inversion is below the escarpment, then you know it's winter. Then you are also looking at the low pressure trough. Remember, it forms during the summer. So here you were asked to draw a simple cross section which will show the position of the temperature inversion in sketch B. So number 1 is the correct position of the inversion layer. Then secondly, it's also the correct shape of the escarpment. So it's 1 mark and 1 mark. Then we proceed to our next question. In our next question, explain why the position of the inversion layer varies between winter and summer. Remember, we said if the question is asking about 2 pictures, please make sure that you indicate this is between the summer and this is in winter. So in summer, we are looking at the upper atmosphere, which is warm because of warmer temperature. And we are also looking at the warm air that is lighter and then it is less dense. So therefore, the surface low pressure because it will create a low pressure. Then the warm air that is rising from the heated earth surface that can force the inversion layer to be further upward. Hence, the inversion layer is above the escarpment during summer. We are also looking at the Kalahari. As you can see, the Kalahari is nowhere to be found on the diagram. So what happens? The Kalahari is weak, or it is poorly developed or weak subsidence of the cold air, because there is a lot of warm air that is rising. Then, in terms of the winter, we're looking at the Kalahari that is dominant over the interior. As you can see there, the Kalahari is dominant in the interior. And we're looking at the upper right. So in winter, as you can see, that the Kalahari is dominant over the interior, as you can see there in the diagram. And then also the upper atmosphere is colder, that there is a stronger subsidence because of the cold air. And the cold air, which is heavier and dense, will force the invasion layer down below the escarpment. So hence, during the winter, your escarpment or your invasion layer will be below the escarpment because of the strong air which is sinking, your strong subsiding air. So as you can see, we identified the Kalahari position. We have identified the position also of the invasion layer. Then we proceed with our next question. In our next question, you were given a paragraph question. In that paragraph question, you're supposed to evaluate the influence of the position of the invasion layer in sketch A on the climate and how it impacts negatively on economic. So you cannot give environmental, you cannot give social impact, because the question was specific to the economic activities on the interior of South Africa. And also, we're looking at the climate and the economic. So under climate, again, as we've said, the question is asking two features or two things. Make sure that you identify these answers belong to this feature, or this answer belongs to this feature. So we're going to start with the climate. There is no moist air that will be able to reach the interior. Remember, because it's during the winter. So again, there is a limited condensation that will result into no cloud, and there will be clear skies. Hence, during the winter, we do not have clouds. Mostly it is clear skies because of the subsiding air. Then, in terms of economic activities, we're looking at it will limit the crops cultivation. So now the farmers, they're supposed to think of the crops that will adapt into the conditions of winter. So it limits the crops cultivation due to the lack of rainfall. So it means the farmer cannot plant whatever crops that will require large amount of water. So they need to go with the conditions of winter. So now it is limiting them. In terms of economy, remember, it has something to do with money. So therefore, this farmer or the country is now being limited into focusing on the crops that will be requiring less amount of water. Only frost-resistant crops, those ones that can withstand the coldness, can be grown. Again, this farmer as well as the country's economy is now being restricted because they cannot plant as much as they can, because they need to adapt to the conditions of winter before they start with their plants. Then we are still on the climate and weather. The questions are based on back winds. So to go through our diagram, there is a Kalahari, there is a back wind that is blowing down the escarpment. There is a coastal low. You have A with the arrow coming in. We have B with the arrow coming out. And you are given a C as well as the west coast. So in our instructions, it's saying figure 2.4 is a representation of a coastal low and a back wind. So now you ask yourself, what is the coastal low and what is the back wind? Anything that we have learned with this A2. Then your 2.4.1, you name the season represented in the diagram. What season? So name. You cannot give 4 or 5 lines in answering the season because you are asked to name 1 times 1. One answer that will give you 1 mark. Then secondly, give 1 reason for your answer to question 2.4.1. In that season that you have identified, what is the reason? Another 1 times 1. Then your 2.4.3, why is the wind visible in figure 2.4 known as backwind? Another 1 times 1. Then the next question is question 2.4.4. It has A, B, and C. You refer to the air movement represented by the arrows at A and B. Remember, it is important to go through the diagram and what do you see in that diagram. So now you are getting a question that says, refer to the air movement represented by the arrows at A and B. As you can see, the A is from the west coast, it is coming in, and at B, it is going out. So, A, name the resultant local wind associated with the coastal low at point A and point B. 2 features or 2 things that are asked in one question. Remember to be specific. Point A is this, and point B is this. Then number B, why is the local wind at A associated with dry conditions? 1 answer that will give you 2 marks. Then at C, it's a paragraph question. In your paragraph question, you discussed the impact of the air movement from the Kalahari High to the coastal low on the physical, which is your natural environment on the west coast region of South Africa. Another 4 times 2. So now that you have went through the diagram and you have went through the question, you can now start answering. So you've got your 2.4.1 to 2.4.3. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to answer these 3 questions, and then after 3 minutes, we move to the next questions. Right, grade 12. Our next question is question 2.4.4 A, B, and C. I'm going to give you 8 minutes to answer these 3 questions because there is a paragraph question so that you can have enough time to structure your paragraph. Remember, you give a fact as well as the qualifier, which means you give a full answer when it comes to the paragraph questions. So your 8 minutes start now. Looking there at our solutions, don't forget to mark again as we are doing the corrections so that it can help you later to identify these are the questions you are most correct with and these are the questions that you still need to work on it. So your 2.4.1, name the season represented in the diagram. So we see there is a Kalahari that is dominant. There are big winds that are blowing down the escarpment. There is a coastal low. So indeed, this is a winter. So in giving a reason, the presence of the Kalahari high cell in the interior, also the presence of big winds, as you see in the diagram, and also that becomes your evidence. Then your 2.4.3, why is the wind visible in figure 2.4 known as big wind? It is because it blows from the Kalahari high pressure to the coastal. As you can see, it is blowing from the Kalahari to the coastal. Or one might say because it is blowing down the escarpment to the coastal low, as you can see there in the diagram. So you see that the diagram, it is helping you to give some of the answers. Then your 2.4.4, we're going to start with A, whereby you were supposed to name the the resistant local winds that is associated with the coastal low. Remember, we've got the offshore as well as the onshore. So A, it's your offshore, and then B, it's your onshore. You will remember that the B is an onshore, the winds that are coming from the ocean to the interior, and the A is an offshore, the winds that are blowing from the interior to the ocean. Then at B, why is the local wind at A associated with dry conditions? So at A, they are associated with dry conditions because of the offshore, the winds that are going off the interior. So there is a lack of moisture because of the air that blows the land to the sea. Remember, it's from the land in the interior, then blowing down into the sea. The air subsides, so therefore there is no condensation. Remember, we need to give a reason why they are associated with dry conditions, because mostly there is a lack of moisture and there is no condensation. Then your C is a paragraph question whereby you are supposed to discuss the impact of the air movement from the Kalahari to the coastal low on the physical, which is the natural environment on the west coast region of South Africa. So we are looking at the negative. The warm, dry wind, which increases the surface water evaporation. Then also, we're looking at the warm winds that will dry out the vegetation. Remember, all our answers is supposed to be in line with the natural environment. We are looking at the dry vegetation that could result or facilitate the fell fires because the vegetation is being dried out, and we're looking at the impact of the Kalahari as well as the coastal low. Because of these bad winds, then it might lead into fell fires. The gust winds from the fan as well as the spread of fires. And also, we're looking at the fell fires that will destroy the ecosystem or the habitats. So remember, each point it gives you 2 marks. Then on the positive, remember the question, it was not specific whether you give a negative or whether you give a positive. So both were covered. Number 1, the raises the temperatures of the coastal area in winter. Then secondly, we're looking at the fell fires that encourage the regrowth as well as the regeneration of the natural vegetation. So after those fell fires, and also now the vegetation will be regrown. So it means it will be new and it will be static. Then we're looking at our question 2. Our question 2, it's based on geomorphology. Again, the examiner can choose any topic based on geomorphology. So here it is based on the graded river. Likewise, study the figure 1.6, which shows the longitudinal profile of a graded river. As you can see, there is a source. There is 1, 2, and 3, and then there is a base level, and you are given a mouth, and it is based on the graded river. So again, you should remind yourself, what have you learned in the graded river? Then we go through the question. The first question, what is meant by the term base level of a river 1 times 1? As you can see, there is a base level. So it is giving you some of the truth. Then number 2, why is the sea regarded as a permanent base level? 1 times 2, meaning you need to give a full answer. Why is it the sea regarded as a permanent base level? Remember, there is a permanent and there is a temporal. Then number 3, what evidence in figure 1.6 indicates that this river is graded? What evidence? Another 1 times 2. Then number 4, why will a drop in a sea level change the grading of the river, 2 times 2. With the mark allocation, 2 times 2, you know you're supposed to give 2 responses. Then your next question is figure 1.6.5. You draw a simple longitudinal profile to show the impact of the drop in a sea level mentioned in question 1.6.4 on the shape of the longitudinal profile. So 1 times 2. Then lastly, your 1.6.6, you explain how the interaction between erosion and deposition in the upper and the lower courses of the river help to maintain graded profile. 2 times 2. So 2 responses. Now that we have went through the diagram and we have went through the question, you will now be able to answer. So we're going to start with the first 4 questions, and then next we do the last 2 questions. So I'm going to give you 4 minutes to answer these 4 questions, and then after 4 minutes, we'll then proceed to 1.6.5 and 1.6.6. So your 4 minutes starts now. Right? I believe that we are all done and ready for the next question. So your 1.6.5 and your 1.6.6, I'm going to give you another 4 minutes, and then after 4 minutes, we'll be able to discuss our solution. Right, girls and boys, looking at our first question, what is meant by the term base level of the river? We are looking at the lowest point at which a river can erode. Remember, that is a base level. It's the lowest point to which a river can erode. Then secondly, why is the sea regarded as a permanent base level of erosion? It's because the land cannot erode down below the sea level. That is why all the rivers, they end into the sea, because this is the end. This is the permanent base level of erosion. Your base level of erosion, we said, is the lowest level at which a river can erode. So now, why is the sea regarded as a permanent base level of erosion? We're talking about the land that cannot erode down below the sea level. So that is why it is a permanent. Then your 1.3.6, what evidence in figure 1.6 indicates that this is a graded, this river is graded? We're looking at the smooth concave shape. As you can see there are no temporary base level of erosion that is evident from the source to the mouth. It is smooth and it is a concave shape. Then your 1.6.4, why will drop in a sea level change the grading of the river? So number 1, due to the change in the sea level, the gradient of the river becomes steeper. So once it becomes steeper, it's no longer graded. And the river profile is no longer smooth because of that change in the sea level. And also the river, it now become ungraded. So 2 times 2. Then you were asked to draw a simple longitudinal profile to show the impact of the drop in a sea level. Remember, once there is a drop in the sea level, it means we said the area will now be steeper. So as the area is now steeper, it will create your need points. So it's no longer a smooth or it's no longer graded. Now it's become ungraded. So it's 2 marks just to draw with the midpoint, and then you label that midpoint. Then your 1.6.6, explain how the interaction between erosion and deposition in the upper and the lower courses of the river help to maintain the graded profile. Number one, the erosion that is dominant in the upper course, removing all the obstacles. Remember the landform or the pictures that we find in the upper course, which are your waterfall as well as your rapids. Then secondly, we're looking at the eroded material that is deposited in the lower course. Remember, if there is an equilibrium or the balance between erosion and deposition, then the river, it becomes graded. Then we're looking at the balance that exists between the erosion and your deposition, which creates a concave profile. Then in our next question, we are still on geomorphology. It's based on the stream channel pattern. Refer to figure 1.7 showing a stream channel. So as you can see there, this is a river that is meandering. We can see there is A, there is B there. So it's supposed to tell you what have you learned about the stream channel in class. So your 1.7.1, you identify the stream channel shown in figure 1.7. What stream channel is this one? Then number B, in which course of the river is the illustrated stream channel pattern most likely to be found? Then your 1.7.3, give one reason why the illustrated stream channel pattern will develop in the course of the river named in question 1.7.2. So 1 times 2. And then number 4, 1.7.4, draw a simple labeled cross-section of the meander between point A to point B, 2 times 2. So I'm going to give you then our next question, you have your paragraph question. In our paragraph question, you would like to develop a campsite along the banks of the illustrated river. After careful consideration, you choose a site along the slope or bank A rather than along the slope or bank B. In a paragraph of approximately 8 lines, you explain why the site along slope or bank A is much better. So it's a paragraph question. You're going to do this alone. So let us start with question 1.7.1 to 1.7.4. I'm going to give you 6 minutes for these 4 questions. And then after 6 minutes, we'll then proceed to the paragraph question. Right? Grade 12, I hope we are now ready for our paragraph question. Remember, you need to explain why the site along the slope or bank A is a better choice. You're supposed to develop a campsite. So I'm going to give you 4 minutes to work on your paragraph question, and then after 4 minutes, we'll be able to proceed to the solutions. Likewise, please make sure that you are marking your work as we are doing the corrections. The first question, you were supposed to identify the stream channel pattern shown in figure 1.1. As I've already mentioned, that you can see that this river is meandering. So it's meandering. Then 1.7.2, in which course of the river is the illustrated stream channel pattern mostly likely to be found? Remember, it is found in the middle course or in the lower course. Then your number 3, in giving one reason why the illustrated channel pattern will develop in the course of the river, which is the middle course or at the lower course. Number 1, it's because the gradient is more gentle. So if the gradient is more gentle, and also the river at these courses, it erodes at the side laterally. And also there is a reduced energy or velocity. Then, in drawing a simple label cross-section of the meander between the point A and point B. So your point A, remember we are saying it's a slip off. Slip off because there is a slow flow and there is a deposition on the side. Then the B is the undercut slope, which is the fast flow. The undercut, remember, there is an erosion, where at A there is deposition. So here we're just showing the label cross-section of the meander between point A to point B. Remember, at point A, because there is deposition, so it's supposed to be higher, and at point B, because there is erosion, it's supposed to be lower, as you can see here. So it's 2 marks and 2 marks. Then we're moving to our next question. You were supposed to discuss why site A or slope or bank A is a better choice for the campsite development. So slope A is more suitable for the campsite because, number one, it has a gentle, convex shape, as you can see there, because there is a deposition. Remember, deposition, it occurs at the lower coast where the slope is gentle. And the gentle slope is ideal for building as well as camping. Remember, again, it is cheaper to build on a flat area. Then easy access to the river for fishing and the collection of water. And also the flow rate is lower, and therefore it is safer because this is your slip off. Then your slope B, should it be you are comparing why slope B is not suitable? The constant erosion, we've already said this is an undercut where there is a fast flow. So it means there is an erosion. So secondly, the undercutting leads to the formation of the river cliff, which is unstable. The position of the campsite will retreat and cause the facilities to be damaged. You'll remember in grade 11 when we're learning about the scarp retreat. Then your question 3, which is your map work. Your map work is based on the map of Howick. Each and every time you will be given a map, and then in that map, before you reach to the question, they will give you a map of South Africa, and then they locate where is the area that is in question. So we are having Howick there as well as its location. Before you can even see, you will realize which province is Howick located to. Beside the map, you are also given the general information of that area so that you can also read what are the things that you can find in that area and what type of an area it is. So I'm going to give you just 2 minutes to read through the general information of Howick, and then after 2 minutes, we'll then proceed to the questions. Right? Looking there at our first question, refer to block B1 on the topographic map. So you are already given an extract or a picture of that block B1. 3.3.1, vector data is a data that consists of points, lines, and polygons. Identify the following vector data in block B1 that relates to the conservation. So it's a point feature as well as your polygon feature. So by now you're supposed to know what are the examples of the point feature and what are the examples of the polygon. I'm going to give you 2 minutes, and then after 2 minutes, we proceed to the correction. Right? Looking there at our corrections, we're supposed to identify the vector data in a form of a point as well as a polygon. At A, there is a lookout tower. Remember the lookout tower, it is a point. Or one might point a spot height or a trigonometric station. Then at B, you were looking at the polygon. So the polygon, your Umgeni Nature Reserve, it becomes a polygon. Then your For 3.3.2, refer to the Howick waterfall in block E2. Your 3.3.2, the location of the Howick Falls at F in block E2 on the topographic map is an example of attribute of the spatial data. Remember, you need to know the difference between your attributes as well as your spatial data. So 1 minute, and then after 1 minute, we proceed to the solution. Right? Looking there at our solution. So the question is asking the location of the Howick Falls at F in block E2 on the topographic map is an example of the attributes of a spatial. So it's an example of a spatial because it does not give a further description. So therefore it becomes a spatial data. Then your 3.3.3. You refer to the Umgeni river, which runs through the town of Kwamevana in block E1. Number A, define the term buffering. 1 times 2. Remember all the definition, you are now allocated with 2 marks. So buffering. Then number B, do you think buffering was applied in the development of the town in block E1? 1 times 1. Then number C, give a proof from the topographical map to substantiate your answer to question 3.3.3b. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to work on these 3 questions, and then after 3 minutes, we'll be able to proceed to the corrections. Right? Grade 12, looking at our question number A, where we're supposed to define buffering. So remember, buffering can be defined in many ways, but most of all, buffering, we are talking about a zone that is drawn around any point, line, or polygon that encompasses all the area within the specific distance of a feature, e.g. the river. Or you may just say simple, the buffering, remember, is the demarcation of an area around the feature or the object. You are also correct. Then number B, do you think buffering was applied in the development of the town in block E1? So we do not see any evidence of buffering. So therefore, the answer is a no. Then at C, you are supposed to give a proof from the topographical map to substantiate that indeed the buffering was not considered. The development of the town is up to the riverbank. As you can see there are riverbanks, but you can see the built-up area. So the development of the town is up to the riverbank with no indication of the buffer area or either side of the river. Remember, the buffer area, you can have an open space that serves as a buffer, and you can have the black solid line that indicates that this is the buffering. And also you can have the row of trees that can act as a buffer. So in this, we don't see all those 3. So therefore, there is a development up to the riverbank, and there is no indication of the buffering. Then, to summarize on what we have learned so far, we have learned how to answer the questions based on your climate as well as weather. We have learned how to answer the questions based on your geomorphology, and also we have learned how to approach the map work questions. So to give you the preview of our next lesson, we will still be focusing on our preparation for paper 1, which is the final revision. Remember, we'll be dealing with the topics that we did not touch today. So we have come to an end of our lesson today. Hopefully you have enjoyed the lesson, but most of all, I hope you have learned. Thank you, and stay tuned for the next lesson.